Welcome to the NGI0 podcast, where we talk to the people who are building the next generation internet.
I'm Ronny.
And I'm Tessel Renzenbrink. We're both from NLnet, a foundation which supports people who are working on free and open source technologies. Our guests today are Julien Malka and Camille Mondon. Julien is a PhD student in software supply chain security at the Polytechnique Institut Télécom in Paris. And he is also a NixOS contributor. Camille Mondon is a PhD student in statistics at the Toulouse School of Economics. Together they work on a project that implements Clevis in NixOS. It makes it possible to remotely reboot servers with full disk encryption without needing a human in the loop. And that project was extended to include Proxmox NixOS, which we'll also be talking about today. Hi Julien and Camille. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Yes, hello.
First of all, did we miss something in our introduction?
No, that was quite perfect, yes.
So, what key issues do you see with the state of the internet today?
Well, today, I guess one of the biggest key issue is that the internet is quite owned by a monopoly of big data corporation, and basically it makes it difficult for people like us that have a particular interest in computer science and internet to make a living out of it while staying in the open source community. So I guess it makes it very important to have public funding and institution that stay strong, and to still consider that the internet is a public service and should be more of a public good. For instance, you just try to self-host your own mail server and you'll see the difficulty that you can meet while doing so, because yes, basically big companies are got the hold on these activities, and self-hosting is not so easy to.
Yeah, like Camille said, I think internet is very, very far from being actually a common good or a public good, and it doesn't belong to people. It's actually controlled by a very small number of very powerful entities, commercial entities usually, that have their own agenda, and that sometimes have political bias in this agenda to continue making profit, and I think one of the key issue today is the issue of centralization, bringing back the power to the people, also involve empowering people to own their little share of the internet and not be controlled by a few companies that control search results, social medias, basically ideology bubbles, everything.
How does your project contribute to addressing those issues?
I think our projects come from the idea that both Camille and I wanted to have some piece of control over what software we use on the daily basis. So we started building some kind of very small home lab micro data center to host our own services, and we found out that we were facing some difficulties in some areas, and one of them was having an easy way to have full disk encryption on our servers without it being too much of a hassle. Like when you have to reboot the server with full disk encryption, you physically have to do an action on the server or remotely, but you have to be there and do it. So it was a blocker for us, and that led to our first, let's say, the first part of the project on Clevis, we found out that using NixOS we were able to much more efficiently maintain our services, our self-hosted services, but with the virtualization technology that we were using, Proxmox, we also found out that we had to go away from NixOS just for our hypervisors, and that led to the second part of the project.
And basically, I'd add that this our project contributes in two ways. First, on the macro level, it's a project that is part of the alternative approach to the centralization of the internet that we discussed earlier, because it is a project that is fully open source and funded by public institutions, and also on more like individual centered level. It enables people like us without a big structure, and just people that have passion for computer science also, to maintain their own infrastructure without like the human power necessary, like to have quite a big infrastructure actually, because with Proxmox or with Clevis you can really have a fleet of servers or many services, and just like because of the cleverness of these open source projects and the ideas behind them, you can just be like 2 or 3 people and have a really big infrastructure.
Yeah, I can agree on that. We are doing the same for the NLnet network, and it works great. Other people use other automation services for that, and we do it all with NixOS. What would be the use cases for remote unattended disk encryption? Well, disk decryption, I must say.
I think the use case is that this decryption is a necessary security measure that everyone should adopt today. But on laptops, it's becoming easier and easier to do so with a lot of distribution that have an easy tool to do it. But on servers, you always have the problem that when the server boots, you need to input your password to continue the boot process. It can be done usually physically. You have to be there and type the password with your keyboard, for example, but you also can do it remotely. But it doesn't remove the fact that when the server reboots, you have to be there and have a manual intervention. And the idea is that with Clevis, you have a framework that allows for automatic decryption of the disk using some kind of secret. And the secret can be either locally on your device with the TPM, or it can be also stored on other machines. And so you have the ideas that as long as you have one of your servers that is booted and up and running, it can help the other server boot unattended.
Yes, I understand that, and I think that's very helpful. But isn't it true that after the key exchange, the key will be in memory, right? The secret.
Yeah, it's true.
So for a VM on with a hosting provider, that hosting provider might also have access to your memory. Yeah,
that's true. So that's the whole question around trusted computing and the new security extensions on processors that will help us go further into building trust within an untrusted hypervisor. That's not exactly the use case here that we tackle. Mostly this is useful for booting bare metal, and this was also the reason why when we were in a situation where the hypervisor was not running NixOS, but we were running all our VM on NixOS, we were having this frustration of having our Clevis contribution not be that useful to us, and that's why also we wanted to port the hypervisor under NixOS, because now we can have this the hypervisor use disk encryption, and we have a cluster of several servers, and they can help each other boot and decrypt the disk at boot using Clevis.
What were the challenges to get Proxmox running on the NixOS?
I guess the code base is pretty huge on Proxmox. There's many packages that had to be incorporated in the same project, and yes, because of the way that NixOS functioned, there was a lot of patching to do in the Perl code base of Proxmox, and also the Rust ecosystem, because they're currently moving from a Perl-based project to Rust slowly, and so that was quite time-consuming, I'd say, and yeah.
The Proxmox ecosystem is of course free and open source, but it's not really designed to be run under different conditions than where it's been developed, and it's been developed to run under Debian, and so you have a lot of I would say things that are assumed to be there, or paths that are assumed to be existing, or the Rust ecosystem relies a lot on the Debian apt system. So it's kind of, we had to strip the software of its original home and make it a new home under NixOS.
Was it hard to get your changes, your patches into the Proxmox code base? Was it hard to get them accepted?
We didn't get any patch accepted or submitted to the Proxmox code base. We have some patches that are really NixOS relevant only for NixOS, and then we have stored these patches locally. We have a few that we feel would be interesting to port for to upstream, especially Camille adapted a small part of the code base to be able to build under ARM or AH64, and so we feel it, even though the upstream project doesn't really build an ISO for or packages for ARM, we were able to do it without too much hassle, just changing a sub part of the code, and we are planning to submit this patch soon.
Cool. And going back to Clevis, you said it's good if at least one of your services is running. Doesn't that mean, does that mean that your challenge can be accepted by any of a running servers, or must it be one specific server that answers the security challenge?
Actually, if I understood the question correctly, I guess the tongue server, right, can be well. You can actually kind of describe your own security protocol if you want either one server and one TPM, or one. Well, you can basically using Shamir secret sharing describe your own security scheme, either any of the servers or all of them. Well.
Okay. Clear. But what were the challenges there to get Clevis working?
Yes. Well, this was actually very difficult because, well, coming back to Proxmox, it was mostly about pioneering in a direction that people never actually ported Proxmox out of Debian. But for Clevis, the difficulty was very different because it was mostly about understanding the boot process and working in the first stage of the boot process in its RD, and since on NixOS it's it's quite different from. It works quite differently from on the other distribution, and also we spend a lot of time working on a test that would be able to prove that Clevis works correctly when installing a new NixOS machine, configuring some Clevis keys and a tongue server, and then rebooting and check that the partition is deciphered correctly.
Yeah, I think as Camille said, we spent a lot of time designing an NixOS test, which is an integration test for a feature, which is a very nice part of the NixOS ecosystem, so that you can have tests that spawn NixOS VM, run some command on them, and then check what have some kind of assertion on the state of the VM. And we wanted to do a very, very extensive test where we could install a brand new NixOS machine, then provision, do the partitioning, then test all. We have three kind of disk encryption: one with ZFS, one with Pcachefs, and one with Lux. And we tried these three different kind of disk encryption, and then we provision the machine so that it uses our Clevis module to decipher the disk at boot, and the test were able to show that both that our module was working to decipher the disk when booting, but also if there was any kind of struggle or problem, it will roll back to a simple passphrase handling like usual. So we were able to prove during inside our pull requests that we were not going to destroy anyone's setup with this change, and that got us a long way into getting it accepted.
So that is nice added information. This means that even if the tank server cannot be reached, your disk is not lost, but you fall back to passphrase on the console, which you of course have to physically access.
Yeah, exactly. So with NixOS, you could always, if you do a wrong, if you do something wrong, you could always roll back to an earlier generation and be safe like this. But we also wanted to make sure that in any case, the worst case scenario is you fall back to the original behavior without Clevis.
Yeah, sure. So I'm hearing NixOS a lot now. What is so special about NixOS? Why do you like it so much?
Well, I guess from a quite outside point of view, because my main domain of expertise is not actually computer science, because I'm a PhD student in statistics, and so I actually use NixOS on a daily basis for my work, because basically, as I said, it makes me able to maintain quite a big infrastructure all on my own, and to be sure, like when I do something, I don't have to do it again if my server crashes. For me, it's really a concrete way to make to make use of what the open source community has to offer, and to speed up my work in statistics, and to have a reproducible environment.
And me personally, when I discovered NixOS, I was already a Linux user for some time, and then a friend of mine showed me what NixOS is, and I started because we are both academics, and we are both. I am a theoretical computer scientist from my academic background, so I started reading the Helco's, so the creator of NixOS, PhD thesis, and also other kind of resources I could find, and my conclusion this is how we should have done computer science forever, and I started to find it very elegant, and that was basically what pushed me to learn it, because it's also quite a difficult journey to learn Nix and NixOS, where you need motivation, not to say, oh, I don't really understand how I should do this, and there is no documentation online, so I will just fall back to something else. So I continued in this process, and I learned it, and I started using it for my different computing devices, so especially my servers, because I had a few servers. I was already self-hosting stuff, and then it became interesting to me that it felt way less work to maintain all these services that I was using. And before that, I was mainly using container solutions, and they were breaking quite often on me, and that was some work to keep them up to date and working. And when using NixOS, it felt that this was working just for free. It was really something that I learned over the year of using it, that it was way less taxing on me to maintain my services using NixOS. And to me, this is you have the technology. NixOS is Nix and NixOS are interesting technology, but you also have a very high value in the set of people that are packaging things into Nix package and maintaining these things, because they pour all their expertise into several into some topic, into packaging modules and software into NixOS, so that people then can use them without needing all the knowledge to operate them. And that's what we did with Clevis. Clevis is not a very complicated technology. It's also not a very simple technology to set up if you don't know anything about it on other distribution. But on NixOS, you don't really need the domain-specific knowledge that we had to acquire to write the module, to operate it as a user. And that's something that is really interesting in the NixOS distribution, according to me.
Yeah, here you have it. The both ways you can arrive to NixOS the hard way, like Julien did, like trying for many years many different things, containers, and having to try every technology possible, and to reboot each machine after it has crashed and restart from the beginning. And when I arrived, and that Julien has already discovered NixOS, I actually only ever installed an Arch Linux, one Arch Linux machine in my life, and used it for like something like 30 minutes before Julien told me, yes, you should switch to NixOS. It's a little more difficult, just the first on the first days, but actually I guess I kind of dodged the bullet and just started right away on the easy path.
Yeah, it's a learning curve, but it's well worth it, especially when you, like you said, when you want to maintain several services. You mentioned community. So do you already have a community behind Clevis, or are you planning to build a community around it? What does that mean for long-term sustainability of your project?
So according to me, for Clevis, as we upstream our change into Nix package, there is no real notion of community. We gave it to the community. We plan to maintain it over time, but it's kind of now included into a bigger project. But for Proxmox NixOS, we have it as a standalone project for now, planning to upstreaming into at some point, but not right now. And we have already saw that there are quite a few people that are interested into the technology and participate to the project. And as it's quite a big piece of software, it's kind of a relief that other people want to help and have their own idea and their own extensions or project into this inside these big projects, so that they can the project also belongs to other people and will evolve, not just by our fact.
Yeah, and I'll add that for Clevis, the point was kind of to make an initial proposal, here is how you can use it, some examples, but the thing is it's quite personal and how you would use Clevis, because each setup is quite different. So the idea was really to use the power of NixOS and Nix packages to propose your use case, and then people can rely on it and then propose their own. And of course, for instance, people might want another kind of partition scheme, or format, and maybe we only use the ZFS and Lux and Bcachefs, and if people want to add something else, then they contribute, and that's how it works, I guess.
That also leads me to the question, because you started this project with the NDI Zero funding as Clevis, but then you morphed also into Proxmox. But both these projects already sound separately rather big. How did you manage to do so much in only one project, which are actually two projects?
Well, long of hard nights work now, I guess. No, but actually they were, for us, quite they were our big project on a personal level, that what we needed for our infrastructure, I guess. There were both the next logical steps, because we had already some services deployed. We had already an hypervisor with Proxmox on Debian, and we needed to move to full disk encryption, and so it took some time, because we've been actually thinking about it for a long time, and so we had some ideas that already had some were already a little more mature than maybe starting the project right away, and just going in the open, and we knew what we wanted to do precisely, I guess.
And also that's maybe more off response, but we did the Clevis part, and I reached out to Muriel, and he said to me, you want to do this, let's just add it to your first project, it's easier.
Okay. Are there any next steps that you are thinking about?
For the Proxmox project, we have quite a few people that reached out with suggestions for extensions, and that's basically what we think we will do whenever we get a bit of time to do it. But the two extensions that we think about currently is implementing some kind of option for declarative configuration of the virtual machines on the Proxmox host. So far we just have a Proxmox instance running on NixOS, but there is minimal configuration that you can do through the NixOS module system. But when you want to create a new virtual machine, you have to use the web interface, as people do when they use Proxmox. But because we are NixOS users, we also consider having another way to configure this virtual machine through the NixOS configuration itself, which some people have expressed interest in. And we also want to consider other storage layers for for the virtual machine. So you have typically in Proxmox setup you can have a Ceph cluster that acts as a layer for the storage of your virtual machine, so that you can move some virtual machine from one physical machine to another super easily, and it helps you achieve what we call high availability. Like you get one node of this cluster that for some reason has a problem and shut down. The virtual machines that are actually running on this node, they can migrate to another node so that you don't get service interruption. So there is Ceph that is already included in NixOS, and we had suggestion for implementation of something called LeanStore, which is another layer, and we are also considering this.
Yeah, and also I guess one concrete big step will be to also move our little homemade data center fully to our Proxmox NixOS, and it would be quite an interesting proof of concept and of robustness of our implementation, and yeah, we will really use the fact that Ceph allows like to disconnect one node, then may reinstall this node on Proxmox NixOS. Hope that we actually don't lose any of our infrastructure, but yes, that would be, once this is done, we kind of achieved what we wanted to do for a long time. So
yeah, so far we've developed on a I'd say development cluster, and we had no problem so far. We think everything works correctly, but the next step is committing with our own hardware and move migrate our production cluster, which has a lot of edge case and weird configurations. So we know that if there is something not working, we will find it at this point.
So Proxmox can not only be used to build virtual machines, but also for containers. I was just thinking, doesn't it make it easier to build NixOS based containers when there is a NixOS layer under it?
Well, honestly, this is not our use case. We don't run containers, so we didn't really go too much in this direction. But we hope that people that have different use case than ours can do their own experimentation and either report if something is not working as they think it should, or contribute just to make it also work for their own use cases. There is quite a lot of stuff that you can make with Proxmox, and for sure not everything is working today. Only things that we have tested because we know that we need it and that most people need it. But over time we will get this proportion of things working over the total bigger and bigger, because other people will come and say, oh, this thing is not working like I think it should, and they will fix it, or we will fix it.
Yeah, and clearly I think there's a lot of wonderful ideas yet to be had on based on this Proxmox on this hypervisor based on NixOS, and then all of your containers and VMs that are also on NixOS, and then I guess that's a big direction towards smashing the state and be able to have like a fully reproducible fleet of VMs and containers.
Yeah. Maybe coming back to the community question again. I mean, for Proxmox, there is already a big community, and I can only think that there are also people that are in the NixOS community that are also in the Proxmox community. So I can only imagine that there is a community waiting there to support you.
Yeah, that was actually quite a big surprise, because the day that we released the project, we were really happy to see that many people were already waiting for it and reaching out to us to say, yeah, that's super useful, and so that makes us happy to have contributed to this project.
Yeah, we were not expecting this kind of hype, but we had a lot of people reach out. I guess 300 stars on the repository in a few days. So I think there is, of course, a community of people that are really interested into that. I don't know how much people have actually taken the step to use it in their own production environment, but the idea is that everyone that is committed to use something that is not commercial, because our project is not commercial and will not do any kind of support like the Proxmox project does, we will help them move to it, and we will accept contribution and issues. So we would be very happy having this kind of little community around the project that make it grow.
Yeah, and it was nice to see the impact of this project, because mostly because we're in PhDs, both in PhDs, some of our projects were like research oriented, like packaging Overleaf, the LaTeX editor, or Zotero, which is for bibliography management, and the hype was really bigger than on these very niche little projects, and so very, very, very happy to see that.
Yeah, interesting. And how did NGI or NGI 0 help your project?
I guess by giving us the chance to have time to dedicate on this. It's difficult when you're a PhD student or to be able to dedicate some of your time to open source and free software. Like, you have to prioritize things, and often, like, for me, open source is a priority, but being able to dedicate some time being financially supported is luck that we've been able to have thanks to NGI 0, and probably we would have done this kind of project anyway at some point, but having this financial support gave us legitimacy and to allocate some part of our time to do it, and do it as soon as possible.
Yes, clearly the impulse they gave us the impulse to work on it and to make something that is to go I'd say to the last step of the project, and not just like start it and then abandon it for and that was really nice to achieve something, and also I'd say that's in a way quite I'd say financially interesting, because in a way it's something that we do on our free time, and if it were our main work, maybe we would get in a way paid more, but we maybe would do it with less passion, because here it's really something that we use for our needs, so we really wanted to make it the best we could, and so the motivation and the financial support is really a good I guess a good way to support projects, and maybe more efficient than what you would meet in a private company or something.
And if you had to give any advice to other people who are considering to apply for funding, what would you say to them?
Try it.
Yeah, I'd say do it. Apply. It's you never know what will happen, and so do try to apply. The application process is not too taxing, actually. It's not something that's going to take days and days, probably just a few hours. So if you can afford taking these few hours, writing your ideas down, and trying something that may become a very nice experience, it's always worth it to do it. And I want to mention that when I applied first for Clevis, I had some very insightful feedback from, while being rejected, I had some very insightful feedback from the NLnet team, and that was really interesting to give me a new angle and vision on what I wanted to do. So at the beginning, the project was based on another technology called Mondos, and it was rejected, but the feedback helped me have a better overview on the ecosystem that was existing on this kind of software, and to do actually a new application that went through. And it's really interesting to see that we have a team of very well-informed experts that can give you feedback that will actually make a difference for your project.
Yeah, and I'll add, just yes, do it. Do consider applying for an NGI zero funding, and do it with the right idea that you're contributing to something that is funded by a public institution, and so you're contributing to making internet a common good, and so yes, that your project should be oriented in that direction.
Yeah, and maybe then some advice from our side that would be the feedback is indeed very helpful, and maybe sometimes you don't get the feedback proactively, so always ask for the feedback, because we or they, another grantor, not grantee, they need to give you proper feedback about why you were rejected, and you can learn from it.
Yeah, and really at some point we thought that we might not do it and not get funded, because we were first rejected, but that's where thinking really taking into account the feedback and like modifying the project and in the way that Julien did was really relevant, because in the end we got accepted, and yeah, the project was indeed better. That's using the other technology, and now we do use Clevis that we even didn't know before. Well, when we first started the project. So
I would like to add a little disclaimer for people who are listening, because currently, at least, the people who are assessing all the applications, they are very, very busy, and so getting feedback might be a little less likely now. Maybe it will again, in the future be possible again. But I think at this very moment, it will be a bit hard to get for them to make time for it. Although everybody agrees that it is super important, but it's a bit busy at the moment.
Yes, that's why we need more money in that domain. We need more people helping, and yes, that's really an important step to get rid of this issue of centralized internet, and yeah.
Yes, I agree. It would be really good because of course NGI Zero is financially supported by the European Commission, and that's great. But also maybe nation states. Germany is now also putting some money or a lot of money into open source. It should be more normal for public institutions to support the public internet. We cannot leave it to companies to build it, obviously, because it becomes a dystopia.
It's also a very sound investment strategy for the public sector. Like we are draining so much money, at least in France, being I'd say dependent on software that is proprietary and very expensive and keeps you locked into one kind of ecosystem, and just putting money into building blocks for software or for the internet that is a common good, that is free software, that is built by passionate people that do not have in mind capitalistic goals, or is just, for me, a very sound political strategy.
And in a way, we save so much money in comparison when with like paying very very expensive, well, a big money to a tech developer that would maybe just work on its specific use case for its specific company with closed source and code, and then no one can rely on it to make, well, advances in society.
Cool. Maybe coming back to your projects, how can the listeners contribute to bringing the projects you are working on further?
Basically, I'd say do try Proxmox, do try Clevis, and we've already had some feedback, and we want more, and like also contribution, because of course we're still doing PhDs, and and yes, we need people to actually be involved in it. So because we cannot like think of all the use cases that people would imagine, and so yes, we already have some warm, well, messages, and we want others and more, and yeah.
Yeah, and knowing that both of you are doing PhDs, the grant only gives you money, not time, right?
Exactly, only 24 hours in a day, and we spend some days, maybe a lot of these 24 hours working on this project, and really happy to have done it, because now we can move to next steps. We don't really know where for right now, but yeah, we still a lot of it's quite infinite actually, because it's both a passion and work. So yeah.
Is there anything that we missed in our conversation that you need to add?
I just would like to add that all this journey from Camille and I was fueled by the idea that we should be less dependent on software we don't have control on software that is managed by companies that can access, analyze, and sell our private data. And it was a journey to own our software again. And I would advise anyone listening to ask themselves, what kind of software do I rely on a daily basis? And if you're using commercial software, are you at ease that this software might be, that the data you're giving to the software might be harvested, analyzed, sold for purposes that are in no way aligned with your own purpose? Are you at ease that software that you might be using on a daily basis is trying to control the way you think by showing you targeted content, and you have no way to control this? Are you at ease that and that was, I'm saying this because I had this personal reflection, that am I at ease that software media that I'm using is specifically designed to make me addicted to it? And at some point, if one of these answer is no, maybe do read and about self-hosting and free software.
And also, it's more easy than you think to migrate some of your use cases to open source and self-hosting. Like, really, what I learned, I was starting from nothing. Basically, I was just enjoying computer science, like from afar, and in only a few months I already had my media server, my services. As I said, only the mail server is quite difficult, but one day maybe we are in a society where it's possible to self-host your basic computer internet needs, and yes, to have kind of a freedom and basically yes, keep on smashing the state.
And that's the whole reason we are working on NixOS, because we believe NixOS can make it so that you don't need to be an expert in computer science or infrastructure or DevOps to be able to have your first foot into this new world of self-hosting and owning your own software.
Yeah, we couldn't say it better. I mean, this is what NGI stands for, the next generation internet, with which is more private, more secure, and more sustainable,
and more user control.
Exactly,
yeah.
Sovereignty.
Yes, thanks a lot for that passionate call for a better internet and by extension a better world. Thank you very much, Julien and Camille, for this conversation. It was really enlightening.
Thank you very much for welcoming us.
Thank you so much.